Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We are committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Today, we have Dominic Scaffidi. He is the president and CEO of HR Possibilities, I love that word, and Parachute Executive Coaching. He is a well-credentialed executive and leadership coach holding recognition as a master certified coach. Dominique, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Yes. Boy, that sounded too formal. My HR possibilities is the way that I do coaching is through that company, and yeah, that's really cool. Oh, and Parachute, by the way, is a colleague of mine that I partner with. So yeah,
I see. Well, thank you for that
yeah.
clarification. Hey, look, I know that you're in the greater Toronto area. Do you live there now? And is that where you grew up? I want to learn
Yeah.
more about your background.
Well,
Yeah.
I was born in Sicily, actually, so in
Oh,
Italy,
mhm.
and came over to Toronto. I was 3 years old when our family immigrated here, and I've been here ever since. So that was, that's more than 50 years now in Toronto, and and I live just north is a suburb called Markham, so that's where I
Okay.
am.
So were you
Yeah.
educated in that area, in the greater Toronto area? Or?
In Toronto, I went to University of Toronto. I did a commerce degree here. So yeah, I grew up here, went to school here, all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm curious about your professional journey. I know that you did some studies in economics and, as you said, commerce, but you are a coach. Would you tell us about that journey from your training in
Yeah.
college to professional coaching?
Yeah, my career was a corporate career in large organizations. That's kind of where I came from. Um, I so following my university time, I started in a it was actually at Procter and Gamble. I was in sales. It was a very large multinational, and then I moved through sales quite a bit. But then I eventually became more and more interested in the people side of delivering business results. So I transitioned into human resources,
Mhm.
and then I worked in a telecom company, a software business, and ultimately a large retailer in Canada where I was vice president of human resources. So that was a 20-year career. Throughout the entire time, and even before then, I was passionate and interested in my own personal development, my own kind of human potential, and what's possible for us as human beings. So even while I was in the corporate world, I had this fascination with development, people development, and the results, how they were achieved through people, and how you could, improve results. So that's kind of the connection to coaching. So once I left the corporate world, coaching was something that I decided I really want to explore more. So I got a coaching certification. I did it. It was a certification in executive coaching, and I've done lots of training around coaching. I'm a big I just love it's kind of a bit of a hobby for me around learning, development, growth, exploration of these. So coaching, I've been self-employed for more than 12 years as a coach. I have a great business where I work with, not just individuals, but in organizations. Bulk of my business is leaders and executives in large organizations. I also work with teams. I'm a team coach, and I also train leaders and managers in coaching skills. And so, what I say is that I love to help these leaders and people managers to become great coaches rather than good bosses.
Ah,
And so, we help them to sort of get to that place. Yeah.
that's fantastic. Speaking of that, I also read where you said, and I'm going to try to quote you here. You said that you help clients see their unlimited potential by helping them access their innate wisdom. Do you
Hmm.
recall saying something like that? And if so, what do you mean
Yeah.
by that?
Yeah, so that very much speaks to my the coaching approach and style, and you can start to see the blending there with my own grounding or understanding of who we are as human beings. So, yes, the way that I coach is really a continual uh, pointing people back
Mhm.
within themselves for the answers and way forward. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know who they are. And when I say that is that who we are as you explore your own true nature is really we are more of a a potential and possibility than we are of anything physical and finite. We certainly are this physical body, and we've got, our own thoughts and things we've learned that we've collected and we store, over time. But we're far more than that. And really, when we're wanting something that we've never done before, what we are wanting to do is access possibility that is beyond whatever we know, whatever we've thought, whatever we believe, whatever we've learned. And where do you get that? People often they'll look outside themselves. They'll be like, oh, well, I'll talk to Dominic. He's really smart. Or I'll talk to somebody else. Well, no, that's just going to get you more of this, stuff that's in books or, these types of things. But you have access to an infinite intelligence within yourself. And it is this energy and intelligence that is actually living you and breathing you. It's so smart that it knows how to breathe, that you, because not you or I, we're not doing this breathing. Something is, but it's not us, right?
Mhm.
So this energy is doing that. If we cut our finger, the finger will heal. That takes a lot of intelligence to figure that out. Even eating food and digesting it, there's such an intelligence, and we can access that. It is within us. It is who we are. And it is in that access that we can really find our own way toward anything. We can build a business, we can earn more money, we can buy a house, we can create things, and all from the accessing of that.
Hmm. Now, you sound very sure about this. I want to probe this just a little bit more. What makes you so certain about what you just articulated, about who we are and what we
Yeah.
draw on as beings? Why are you so
Oh,
certain?
yeah.
Yeah.
I am certain of it, and all of us easily can be. It just takes a little bit of quieting down, right? So the way I say it is that you are far more than you think, right? So whatever you think, whoever you think you are, that's just a limitation. But who you really are is far more than you think, and you always will be. If you live to 100 years, no matter what you think and who you think you are and what you think you are capable of, you are far more than that. Right?
Mm.
So whatever you're able to think is only ever going to be a limitation and a cap upon the possibility that is really you. Now, how am I so sure of this? Well, we each can be, and what I guess the metaphor that I would use is it just depends on who you think you are. And if you keep exploring who you think you are, you will see more and more. And so I'll use a metaphor, which is like a computer. And so we could think of a human being like a computer or a laptop, right? At one level, if I ask you, who are you? Who do you see yourself to be? Well, similar to a computer, you can look at it physically. And if you looked at a computer that way, you would say, well, I have this much RAM and I've got a CPU that works this fast and, like that. So physically, you could understand who you are. You are this body, you are, like that. Now, the other thing with the computer is it's got some stuff we can't see that are also part of that computer. It's like the data that's in there, there's software in there, So once that thing starts operating, what you can see is that depending what you store, so the that information, and each of us, we've collected through our lifetime, living, we've read books, we learn things, and so you sort of collect that. There's we have our psychology would be the way to describe that. It's our psychology, our thinking, and our thoughts. And with a computer or a laptop, what happens is the hardware is one thing, but then the way it operates is it's operating with the data that's there and all of that. But here's the cool thing about a computer, which is similar to us. When you look so far, you've got limitation. So there's limitation of the physical hardware. It's got certain capabilities, but you can then, through psychology and thinking, you can actually improve it with different software and upgrading the operating system and all of that. You can actually make it work better, more efficiently, faster. You can increase it to a certain degree. But here's the really cool thing. Once that computer gets connected to the internet, well, now what is available to it is all, and I'm using this as a metaphor, but it's all the intelligence that's available. It's everything that is known becomes available. I'm talking to that little laptop, which you and I have, so we can access anything. Now, when it comes to human beings, how do we do that? Well, we understand here I am physically and here I am psychologically in my thinking. But there is something else going on here. And there is an energy that is actually operating me, actually moving me. And how do I know for sure? Again, if you quiet down and you just notice, you might notice there is breathing. And this breathing is happening, and it's happening perfectly. It's been happening perfectly since the day you were born. What is doing this? What is doing this so intelligently? What is it that moves me this way? Again, cutting my finger, it heals itself. What is this energy that is doing this? That is an energy that is a part of me too. And that energy would be, when you look, is an infinite intelligence that is who I really am. That we could say is the greater part of me, but focused into this physical body. And focused here, and I operate in my normal day-to-day life. But my access here, my access in terms of what I can imagine and what I can create and what I can do here is enormous. But it's not enormous because of who I am physically and the things that I've learned. That's all limited. It's enormous because it opens up any possibility to me. Mm-hmm. And it's as close as your breath. You can know that it's happening. It never leaves you. So this would be, for human beings, it would be your spirit, we can call it. We can call it the spiritual nature of a human being. They are more than physical, more than psychological. They are also an aspect called spiritual, which is an energy that is indivisible from all energy.
I get that, because as you were speaking about the computer, I thought about my smart speaker, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And once I sync that thing to the internet, I can ask it, Alexa, what time is it? Boom. The response is like immediate. And the wisdom is that in the speaker, as you said, it's connected to all.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, let me ask you this, Dominic. Most people now, or many people would say, I believe in God. However, a lot of people recoil at the notion that this energy called God is also the energy flowing through me. If I'm right, and I'm not trying to be, why do we resist embracing that powerful place to come from in our lives?
Right. Well, it's interesting because there's a few things about that. First, if when people don't resonate with that term God, it's because of how loaded it is with lots of beliefs and different things that have happened in history. So some people say, "Don't talk to me about that," and you don't have to. You don't if that label doesn't work. What's really funny is that there's the idea that man was created in the image of God, but I think even more accurate is that God has been created in the image of man. So man has created this God that's a vengeful, angry, like there's all this stuff, judgmental, and all the kind of thing that so we went backwards and created God, and then a bunch of people were saying, "Oh, I don't believe in that. Don't talk to me about God." But when you see that as the energy that is the essence of all things that we experience, all things that are in form, all things physical. So it's that energy. Once you see its energy, then it's indivisible. Because you can't say there's a certain energy over there that's a special kind of energy, different than an energy over here. Well, how did you separate it? Like, how did you even split that thing apart? And by the way, what's the wall you have in between there? Because that must be even more powerful than any of that energy. And what is it made of, by the way, that you even came up with this wall to put in that would separate it? So if when you say God, and Sydney Banks said, he talked about the energy of all things. That is a name for God, the energy or essence of all things. So that means all things, including whatever we are trying to use that would separate that energy from another energy. It would have to be made of that same. Your question, we recoil, you said we recoil from. So when I say I'm separate from that, but I'm not that energy, that would make me pretty special, don't you think?
I agree. Yes, there would be. Yeah.
Wouldn't I be special?
Yeah.
Like, there is an energy that has created all, that has expressed into the trees and the animals, and it's kind of the intelligence behind out of it. But that's not me. I am separate from that. That would make me pretty special.
I got you. Right. I was at the beach just this weekend, and just listening to the ocean. Now you probably said, Stephen, you're off your rockers, but I tell you, really, listening to the roar of the Atlantic, the ocean, back and forth. So it was like it was in rhythm, and I thought, whoa, the ocean is alive. That is energy or something is flowing through it. What is your response to that? Is that like a crazy? It really flowed into my brain. This ocean, it was like it was alive, moving powerfully. What's your impression? What's your response to that?
Well, that was you really connecting and becoming aware of the truth of that in other words, when you're thinking and you're in your mind thinking, right? So then what you see is, well, look at all this separate stuff. I mean, I'm sitting over here on the beach, and then over there, you can see the water. Well, that's not me. That's so different, right? And then, and then there's some wind coming and whatever, and all of that's different. But when you quiet down and you just are there present without these ideas that are really separating all this stuff, you feel like, boy, there's an energy here, and what we might say is, wow, it's got all of us.
Yeah,
it's got us all, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You've mentioned the name Sydney Banks, and I want to ask you about him in a moment. And I also know that you draw on what Esther Hicks shares, and I want to ask you about that. But I want to throw out some other names, some oldies to you, and see whether they mean anything to you, whether they resonate with you or not. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. So here's one. Wallace D. Waddles, turn of the 19th century writer. Does that name mean anything to you?
I've read a bit of what he's written. I
Mm,
don't remember what, and I've had people recommend some of his writings
okay.
before, and what I've read resonated. He seems to be pointing and thinking about similar things
Yeah,
and expressing in his unique way.
right. Here's another oldie, Neville Goddard. Does it
Oh
name?
yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, so
okay.
him I've listened to more,
Uh-huh.
and he also is definitely expressing in his own way what
Mm,
he was able to see as he's explored some of these things.
okay.
And he does speak to law of attraction, and he does speak to the power of our mind and imagination, and
Uh-huh. Okay.
yes.
All right. Sydney Banks. Sydney Banks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sydney Banks, I mean, he had a huge insight, an enlightenment experience where he saw beyond this, physical kind of existence. He could see into the energy of all things. Um, and then he kind of came from that experience and began speaking about it. In the early days he spoke about it a lot, using words like God, Christ consciousness, and other kinds of words that he used in his expression. Later he changed and was able to give some description to this in something which today is popularly known as the three principles. And so Sydney Banks, he spoke to the three principles. And the three principles, in a way, what that did is he talked about an energy that was an all, like the allness. This is the only thing there is. He spoke about the allness. But when you talk about the allness, this intelligence, you can't talk about it long because there's no distinction. So he distinguished into three principles.
Mhm.
So he said it's got a quality to it which is intelligent, and he described as mind, right? Mind is an intelligence, it's this energy, and it's pervasive and all. That, but the thing about this energy is that it is also aware of itself. So it's not like the data in your computer or an intelligence like a math that we say that is intelligence like that. But it's an intelligence that is aware of itself. So that's the second principle was consciousness. So this energy is mind, which is conscious and aware. And then there is a third principle in there. So, an energy aware of itself, it's an energy of all that is aware of itself with a capacity to think.
Mm,
And the way Sydney Banks spoke about it's this word think, which is when that energy, the way I will say it in my way is that energy has an ability to focus. So if it's the energy of all, aware of itself, it has the ability to focus and imagine. And in its focus and imagination, that is what thought is. Thought is a focus of consciousness. And whatever this energy thinks is.
mm,
So, what it thinks is. And so it's almost like if we dream or imagine, what we imagine is in our mind. So, thought is the creative energy behind this, mind, consciousness, thought. Whatever that focus or thought is. So thought is the creator.
mm,
And the important thing Sydney Banks said later was Okay, so I just said there are three things. There are not three things. This is really one thing. It's only one energy. But again, you couldn't talk about it unless it's described. So he described it in that way. And what's beautiful about the way he described it is that then we can kind of relate that to ourselves. And what we could see in ourselves is similarities and parallels. I have a personal mind, and my personal mind is really technically what it is a focus or a use of this universal mind. I am conscious and aware, and that is really a use of consciousness, the principle of consciousness. And I have the capacity to think, to focus on things. And what I think becomes real in my experience. What I think is created in my experience. And so we're using the same nature he discovered on a personal basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I know that you also draw on the work of the late Jerry Hicks and his wife, Esther, who shared the teachings of Abraham. What is that about? And I'm going to get to the law of attraction in a moment, but can you help us? What about them? What do they share?
Well, the core of that teaching does speak to law of attraction, but in order to understand that, so Esther and Jerry Hicks, Esther Hicks channels a collective consciousness. That's how they describe themselves. A collective consciousness that have named themselves Abraham. It is not a person. It is not a personality. It is not that. It is a collective consciousness, various perspectives, and call themselves Abraham. And Esther Hicks channels that. And so, core to their teachings, and this is where you'll see parallels with three principles. What's core to their teaching, they nearly begin every workshop in this way, which is in order to, and this is kind of interesting, in order to really understand law of attraction properly, you must know who you are. Because otherwise what you get is a lot of nonsense around thinking that, this you, physical little finite you, is going to use some sort of power of the law of attraction to manipulate the universe and create things for yourself, right? So this is kind of what happens when you don't really understand who you are. So in the teachings of Abraham, it begins with who are you? And the way they describe, and you're going to hear parallels with Sydney Banks in Three Principles, is who you really are is pure source energy consciousness. So who you are is this pure source energy consciousness. Over into Sydney Banks and Three Principles is who you are, and what's true is the energy of all things. That is who you are. And then Abraham says, and a part of you has focused into this physical existence. So Sydney Banks said, who you are is the energy of all things, but this physical you is an aspect. The words he used were, you are a microscopic aspect of the energy of all things. You are a microscopic aspect. Notice Abraham says you are pure source energy consciousness, and a part of you, a microscopic aspect could be said as that, a part of you has focused into this physical existence, while, they go on to say, while the greater part of you remains non-physically focused. So you have focused here, a tiny part, microscopic aspect, while the greater part of you remains non-physically focused. The greater part of you does not even show up here. It is not even captured in your physical body. It's not captured in anything you think or that. That's why I said you are far more than you think. That is the teaching of Abraham, is that teaching of who you are and your true nature, that is the core of it. And then, because it's all energy, The law of attraction becomes very, very important because that law is a law of energy and it must be understood. Abraham says that it is the only law that matters. It matters more than anything else you know. If you misunderstand that law, this entire existence will confuse you. You will misunderstand what's going on. There is only a law of attraction. There is no assertion in this universe that you exist in. This universe is responding always to a vibration or an energy that is you, and that which is like unto itself is drawn. So whatever your energy is, you will match up with that in the universe. And so that is the only law that matters. There is nothing coming at you that is not a match for the energy that you are. There is nothing that will ever attack you that comes in from outside of you. That is not your true essence. So this is, why some of these things, kind of.
Okay, fascinating. Okay, so let me see. It's not really role playing, but I want to play a game in a sense. I want to ask a couple of things. And I want you to keep your coach's hat on, as well as your understanding of Banks and Abraham Hicks and the like. So if you were coaching members of the Biden administration and members of Congress about how to work together better, how would you guide them? Now, the reason I ask this, let me say this, the reason why I ask this is that you once said, and I'm quoting now, my purpose is to inspire greatness in leaders and teams. So Biden administration, Congress, you know the conflicts in the United States.
Right.
Is there anything that you would say to them if they ask you to coach them on how to work together better?
Well, it would be very much, like pure coaching, and I'm very, very steeped in coaching principles, which I believe are very much in harmony with all these spiritual understandings that I have. I think that modality, which we call coaching, is a beautiful way of interacting with people and a beautiful, respectful kind of conversation, which shows up as a great way to interact with people when you really understand who we are in our true nature. I'd say it's one of the most perfect ways so far as a form of interacting, better than kind of advising people and consulting and giving them your expertise and all of that. Like so where I would start with, though, because what's essential in coaching conversations is what is it that they want, because I would have nothing to offer them if they could not. Would have nothing to offer them without asking that question. What is it that they want? What is it that they most want? That would be the beginning of it, because if I'm coaching them, it's not about what I think they should want, and it's not about what I want. It is about what is it that they want. Now, at the end of the day, in all of this, what do they want? What do I want? What do the Congress people want? At the end of the day, here's the truth that I know. The essence of what we want is all one thing. But where I'm starting, if I'm talking with another human being, and I don't know what they think, and I don't know where they're at, but I know what's at the essence of all of us. And so in my coaching, I will keep pointing toward that essence, which is then where all the intelligence is, all the solutions can be found, and everything you want will be found by going deeper into that. So that would be the approach that I would go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we need both coaches, and I think we need coaches that come from a spiritual place. And I think about, what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, the presidents of those countries. Same question. Would your approach be the same? asking them what they
Yeah,
want. Hmm.
that's a good example because you've got such a polarity there, right?
Hmm.
And I'm going to say this in this way. Everything that you want is because you believe you will feel better in the having of it. Every single thing that you want is because you believe that you will be happy in the having of it. So what every motivation that you have to do this and not that, to create this and not that, to take any action is because that will make me happy. That will be better. I will be happier, more joyful than right here. And so it's interesting when you see this sorts of conflicts. There is no way to solve or resolve the conflict at the level at which it shows up. Because the level at which it shows up, it has already expressed into form my idea and your idea. And so my idea is this, and your idea opposes that. And so you and I are now in conflict. But if we have some ability, and if I'm coaching, this comes into play when I'm coaching teams, because you get different perspectives, right? But in coaching a team, what the way I say it is, we can listen for a desire that is not individual. You can hear a desire or a something important that wants expression, which is not individual. It is not coming from each perspective. So if you take the war, right, what is it you want? And if you go deeper, because right now each side has come up with a solution to achieving what they want. And in that solution, it is in conflict with each other. And then one side or the other has decided that the way to achieve it is through violence, really to eliminate the other thinking, to eliminate that other. But if, this in the world is, Sydney Banks, by the way, he also described how each of us is living in our own thought created reality, and we are not one of us is living in the same reality, right? So each of us individually has created our own world. It's made of thought, and that's the world that we see. And so there are not two of us that can view this energy of all things from the exact same perspective. Abraham says the same thing. Abraham says that you are a unique expression of this pure source energy consciousness. So you are a unique expression of it. But the power in that is what it does is these expressions in their variety evoke from us even new possibilities and new desires. This is what keeps creation and expansion expanding. But when we misunderstand, and I think that here's what it is. I think that the thing that you are imagining, that you are thinking, I don't like it, right? I don't like it. Well, if I don't like it, it inspires within me, it can, what it is that I do want, what it is that I do desire. And at essence, if you remember that everything we want is because we believe we will feel better in the having of it, it's for joy. Then both of you, both of us, both of anybody in conflict, is what they're wanting is to experience joy, to experience love, to experience peace, to experience abundance, to experience their own true nature. And a thought comes in that the reason I'm unable to is because you're over there in that land. And there's something about you over there in that land that really threatens me. And so I'm no longer at peace because you are over there. And you don't even look like me. And so that's very threatening. right? So, but the threatening part is a thought. It's not true. And why I'm not at peace and why I feel conflicted is not because of you. It's because of this thought. And
Wow.
so it's interesting, and that's what's in our way is thought, that thought.
Right. So it is possible for combatants to see something else if they're willing to explore it. I hear you. Okay, so earlier you mentioned the law of attraction, and the word manipulation came up, and I want to look at that a little more because, from my standpoint, a lot of people who talk about I hear, attracting what they want, but it is like manipulation. But I think you were telling us that the law of attraction is not manipulating the energy. Is that,
Yes,
or is it? I mean,
it is. It isn't.
uh,
This is the funny thing. It's ridiculous to believe that we can control the universe, right? The law of attraction is simply something to understand, which is to say, so first of all, if we understand this, the only reality that you will ever, so I say on my website, I say you create your own reality. I got that, right? You create your own reality. And I even offer a program, it's called Deliberate Creator. And I always laugh because in the Deliberate Creator program, I start off and I'll say, "Oh, so here we are now in the program, and this program, it says, right, you create your own reality." Well, we're not going to talk about like that part. I can't teach you. And people are like, "What?" Yeah, I can't teach it because it's already happening. You're already doing it, right? So that's not what we're going to learn. We're not going to learn how to create your own reality. You are never not creating your own reality. So all we're doing is exploring, how is this so? How is that I am creating my own reality? Because it sure doesn't look like it to me. I don't think I'm doing it, because if I was doing it, this isn't the reality that I'd be living in, right? And so, but what we want through the exploration is you want to understand that you create your own reality and there's nothing else that is ever going on. When you understand this, then you are conscious as it happens. And we could say you become deliberate as it happens. So deliberate, conscious, and awake is different, right? Than you're driving a car, but you're asleep. Really, you don't know what you're doing, and all kinds of stuff is going to happen. You need to wake up with that kind of power as that power is moving. So it's not you that moves that power, and it's not you that is, right? But you got to be awake because there's something going on. So you create your own reality, and law of attraction is basically a law of energy, which is always responding to energy, and that which is like unto itself is drawn. So how this relates to you is when you're standing where you're standing in this moment of now and thinking about your life and conditions, what you don't realize is that in the thinking, what happens is in the thinking you are creating. Your life right now is the way that it is, with a certain amount of money in the bank, a business a particular way, with a certain number of clients. That is just the way that it is. Now, when I say you create your own reality, what happens is you are creating, and I'll change this word slightly, you are creating your own experience of reality. Now people say, "Oh, you cheated. First you said you were going to create your own reality, and now you're saying you created your own experience of reality." And what I say is, it's the same thing. There is no difference. Let's not argue about whether there really is a reality outside of your experience of it. The reason we won't argue about it is because I don't know if there really is that bank account with that money. I don't know if there really is a business with it. But whether there is or not, instead of debating it, let's just say that the only one you ever know and the only one you will ever live with is the one you are thinking about.
mm,
That's the only one you are ever dealing with. If your business gives you trouble, the only business that gives you trouble is the one you are thinking about. So let's not talk about whether there's a real one there or not. The only one you need to work on is the business that you are experiencing, the relationship you are experiencing. And that, what you deal with, is all in your mind created by thought. If you have a relationship that gives you trouble, if you have a business that gives you trouble, you have troublesome thought going on around this business. Do you want to get out of trouble? Then the way to get out of trouble is what needs to change and alter is the way you've constructed and created this business with thought. And as the trouble is resolved within your own mind, then the manifestation of it, what is expressed outwardly, is resolved in itself. When you don't see that and you have troublesome business, and now you, instead of working on and settling your own creation, you get out there to play with what you've created, you're just keeping it stuck because you have not altered the source of the creation.
Yeah. If it's out there, it must be in here first, wherever.
Has to be.
Yeah. And then
that's law of attraction.
Yeah, that's it.
That's law of attraction.
I got it. So it is possible for a person to change his life or her life by just cleaning up the way they think.
Well, it's the only way.
It's the only way. Okay.
It's the only way, because nothing in your life is separate from the essence that is expressing it. You are not experiencing one single thing that you do not think.
Wow.
You cannot experience anything you are not thinking. You are the source of that experience. As your thinking changes, and it's always changing, as your thinking changes, what you are experiencing changes with it. This morning you may have woken up with a certain view of the world and the danger in it and the horrible situation it is. Tomorrow morning you will wake up and it will be very different thinking. And your entire world and the world you live in will be a completely different experience. You will be literally living on a totally different planet. One this morning that was terrible and had no possibility, and one tomorrow morning that is full of possibility and opportunity.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Dominic, it has been a pleasure spending this time with you. Thank you for being with us. Look, so may I put your website address in the description wherever this podcast appears? Would it be okay?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
okay.
It's just myname.com. Right?
Okay.
So www.dominicscaffidi.com. Yes, and there's lots of free resources and stuff there that people can just listen to webinars and different things. I talk endlessly about this stuff.
Okay, fantastic.
And a lot of it's there.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you care to share with us before we end this program today?
Yeah. Everything you want, you can be or do or have anything. You can be or do or have anything that you desire. If this environment that you have focused into, which is this physical existence, has the wherewithal to inspire within you any idea or imagination, then that same environment that inspired that within you has a matching manifestation of it. It must be able to manifest what you desire. And you couldn't think it if it could not be, right? And the only difference and the only gap in there is your thought in opposition to that. And so as you stop thinking in opposition to your dreams and desires, you allow their manifestation into your experience and reality.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it. You have been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. Today, Dominic Scaffidi has been our guest. He is an executive coach and an expert, I will say, on the law of attraction. Dominic, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephen. It's a
So,
pleasure.